Hi everybody. I'm doing a total experiment today again, and it just popped in my head last night. I have so many art supplies that even if I came in the studio every day, I wouldn't touch a quarter of them. But one of my favorite things to do is to work with cold wax and oils. And I know that it's against the rules and the laws of nature to mix oil and water, but it's experiment day. So I decided to try cold wax medium with distress oxide sprays. And so I took about a quarter size dollop of the cold wax medium and 3 squirts of each of these sprays to make 4 different colors, and then I mixed the mixes from these two to make a 5th color. So I have tumbled glass, prize ribbon, forest moss, and bundled sage. I had pulled out gathered twigs, but I didn't mix any of that up. So this is an Arches oil paper. So I thought I would go on this kind of paper just because I know it will hold up under the wax. And that's as far as I've thought so far. So I think it's just going to kind of be an abstract just to do this experiment and see what happens. Now, I can't show you my palette's too far off to my right where I have my wax mixtures, but nothing is separating. The spray's mixed into the wax pretty easily. I mean, it's a liquid, so it took a little bit longer than like the oil paint takes to mix in with the wax, but it's mixed up and it's not separating. So I have my biggest pile is of the prize ribbon, so I'm just going to start with that. I'm just going to put it on. You can see what it looks like. Hopefully that's focused. And I'm just going to scrape some on here. Leave it thicker in some places and thinner in others. Let's put some down here. Maybe I'll pounce through that and get a little more texture down here. Alright, I'm going to wipe off my knife. And I'm going to come in with the tumbled glass. Some of that mix over the darker blue. That looks like clouds. And then this is the mixture of these two. Just really getting it off my knife. Okay. I'm going to go with the, what is this one? Bundled sage. We won't really know long term how this is going to hold up until it's really good and dry, which that can take up to a week, up to a month, depending on how much wax is on here. And then this is the forest moss. And so far, I don't know what that is, I got a goober. So far everything seems to be all right. I mean, it's not, you don't see any separation on the paper of the spray and the wax like you would expect with oil and water. So that's encouraging. I like the look. It's a much lighter, I don't know what those dark spots are. I got something in there. It's a much lighter, almost a stained look, which makes sense because it's spray stain, right? I'm going to bring back some of this lighter blue. Just some touches. Just because I want to use up what I mixed up. Move this down a little. So I had that splat box there because I thought maybe I would also spray on top of this, but I'm thinking that's probably not such a good idea. That's pushing the boundaries a little too far. What do I have left? I have the dark blue left. Let's get some in here maybe. I'm just going kind of thin with this because I want it to dry so I can maybe do some more on top. And some more of the light. And you kind of lose colors as you go over top of things. I like the look. Right, I'm going to just, I have some bundled sage, some of the forest moss, and some of the prize ribbon left here. I'm just going to mix it together on my palette over here and use it up. It's kind of a nice turquoisey sort of color. Actually, it's more green than blue. A lot down there. And a big gob off the edge of my table. All right. So far, so good. I mean, it's pretty. It didn't separate so far. It hasn't separated. So There's not a lot more, I'm wiping this wax up, not a lot more that I can do with it right now. I mean, I could scribble into it and probably add some, like if I wanted to add dark in there, I could. I mean, I could do any number of things. I guess I should have said not much more I want to do with it. Let's just play. I have a silicone brush. This is Master's Touch 1.5 inch silicone brush. And I can just get some marks in here. Like that. Normally I'd be reaching for an R&F oil stick or something that I know will mix into the wax, but right now I'm just, because of this mixture with the water-based and the oil-based wax, I'm not real keen on the idea of mixing in more water-based stuff. So I can just lighten that area just by taking some of the wax off. Get a clean paper towel. I could take this paper towel that has just like the dotted texture and maybe go into this blue right here and leave the texture behind. That's always fun. And to do it up here too, where it's the darkest. So any kind of these like subtractive techniques will work right now. What else do I have? The end of a paintbrush and just do some ischemic writing through there by taking the wax off, scratching through it. I could have put a colored layer down over this whole paper before I started, and then when I scratched back or did these subtractive techniques, that's the color that you would see instead of white. But because I was experimenting with these sprays, I just did it this way. The other thing I could have done, and maybe I'll do another one and try it, is to spray the paper first and get the colors on the paper first and dry it, and then do the cold wax mixture and put it on like we just did. I could do that as well. I mean, you can do whatever you want, obviously. The other thing that will be interesting to see is whether or not this dries faster, because I don't have the oil paint to evaporate, only the cold wax. So I just had a thought. Hang on. Sometimes that's not a good thing. I have this graphite powder, which is really messy and goes everywhere, but I am going to sprinkle some of that in here. Let me get a smaller palette knife. I can get just some on the very end, just a teeny bit. I'm going to come from up quite high because I want to try to avoid really big blotches of it. And get a little more on here. Okay. then what I'm going to need is maybe a piece of deli paper. This down. Take a brayer and push that powder into the wax. Now this paper is going to pull up some of my paint too when I pull it off, but I don't know if there's actually enough wax on there to hold that powder in. I may have to tap some of it off. That's pretty all by itself. That will also dry, and I can use that in collage. I'm going to take this over to the wastebasket and see if any of that graphite powder is going to come off. It's staying on. So that is sort of like when we splatter with acrylic paint to get paint splatters. I love that. Let me see, what else do I have that I wonder, I'm going to probably ruin it. This stamp is sitting here. Well, that's kind of fitting. It says replace fear of the unknown with curiosity, which is kind of what I'm doing. So I am going to take my archival ink. This I have a bad feeling about. I don't know that this is going to work because the wax is still wet. I'm going to find a place that's thin right in there. I'm going to just try it. Because why not, right? I mean, well, it kind of worked. It's a little bit light in that one spot, but I'm just doing this for you guys and for me to see what we can get to work. And this is by no means a guarantee that if you spend your time and your supplies to do this kind of thing, that you know you're going to get a masterpiece or it's going to last forever, because it's oil and water mixed together. It's probably not super archival. It's just an experiment. It'll probably end up just, you know, getting torn up and used as collage pieces along the way in my journal or somewhere. But it just came into my head, wonder, you know, what if? The famous what if. Now, so tell me in the comments, what unusual combinations have you used in your art? Have you done things that went against the so-called rules? And I mean, I know water and oil are a big one, and it's never going to be archival, I don't think, if you do stuff like that. It's just an experiment, or things that you try in a art journal that maybe you don't care if it's not going to last forever and ever, you know. So I think I'm going to leave it there. If I do more on this, more experiments or add things or whatever, I will put extra photos at the end, still photos at the end of this video. If you're interested in how to actually use cold wax and oil, which is how it's intended to be used, I have a whole playlist of cold wax and oil paint videos that you can watch and see how it's intended to be used. This isn't it, but it's cool, and Now I know it's like I kind of expected things to separate and really not mix in together very well, but it does, and it's pretty now because this is Oxide. Oxide, if you haven't used Oxide sprays or the Oxide ink pads, kind of the same deal. Once you put it down, if you add water to it, it kind of changes colors and it mixes around and you get cool little like crater spots. It didn't happen with this. So it's maybe the cold wax can be used once you get a piece that you make with the oxides the way you want it. Maybe the cold wax is a good way to do your final seal, so that if the piece gets wet in the future, it's not going to be affected. It won't change. So, cool experiment. I will try and lift this up so you, whoops, can get my fingers under it so you can see it. My camera is overhead, so I can't see if it's focused or not. Right here I have some cool texture. I don't think I did that, so that it may change a bit. Looks a little crackled right there. I'll take some close-ups for you. We may get some textured effects that just the paint and the spray and the wax are doing all by themselves. Maybe they are going to separate over time, which wouldn't be bad if it doesn't fall off the paper. So it'll be something to watch. We'll come back to it from time to time. I'll let you know how it does as the solvents evaporate out of the wax and the wax gets dry. I have a feeling just from what I'm seeing right now up close that we may get some textured effects, but it also may just start cracking and falling off the paper. So it's an experiment. That's why I do them, to let you see, and then on this one especially long term we'll see what happens to it, whether it sticks around or whether it just disintegrates. But hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for coming along today. If you're not a subscriber and you like what you see, hit my subscribe button and my notification bell, and you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you've used any unusual combinations, or give me some ideas of what else we could do to this. And in the meantime, go make some art. Bye.